Good morning, everybody. A little later in the morning than usual. I'm Jake Rowe. He's Rusty Mansell. We're from DawgsHQ, and it's the last day of April. Wake up tomorrow. It'll be May. This year's already flying by. It's already crazy.
Yeah.
We're going to discuss Georgia's recruiting board a little bit, kind of discuss what we know, what we don't know, what we're looking to find out here in the next week as coaches or a couple weeks as Georgia coaches are on the road during an evaluation period. That board is largely still not largely, but probably still unsettled in some spots. And this evaluation period is for. And then ultimately get into kind of what's next for the team. We got to read from our sponsor, our guy Andy Ludicky over at My Perfect Franchise, and we're going to take some of your questions. So if you got some good ones and you're watching live, get into the comments and ask your questions. Get them.
Man, I can get dangerous. We're doing that now. We're doing that now.
We're going to do that. They're going to start asking them right now. We'll scroll back and get to them, but pile them up in there. We'll get to them if we've got time or get to as many of them as we have time. But, Rusty, let's talk about this recruiting board because I was just thinking about it today. You've done a phenomenal job last 2 days of kind of telling us where Georgia coaches are going to be. Some of those guys are pretty settled, right? Some of those guys are they've been targets for a while. Some of those guys are not. Like I think of a guy like Andrew Purcell over at Enterprise, Alabama, that T-Rob is there seeing him and Zion Grady. Not Enterprise. Isn't it? Yeah, it is Enterprise. Yeah. With him and Zion Grady and Eric Winters. So ultimately, how do you, as somebody who's done this for years and years and years, this time of year, what do you expect from a team as far as how its recruiting board is set up? Is it still pretty fluid right now? How set is it, in your opinion, based on what you've seen in the past?
Well, right now you have a pecking order, kind of. Privately, you have a pecking order, but with Kirby Smart and most of these schools, I would venture Ohio State and the Alabamas and most of them, I would say, quote unquote, big boys. I could dig deep, LSU, all these schools like that. You try to get these kids to camp. So, and everybody tries to get these kids to work out one last time, or now the coaches are on the road. They're actually trying to see these guys in person, work out one more time. They're trying to see who's gained weight, who hasn't gained weight. You get to go into school now and you get to talk to those coaches and say, hey, what's he been like since recruiting? He's a senior now. What's his attitude like? Is this stuff bothering him? Has it changed him? There's a lot more that kind of investigative type stuff. You kind of dig on the kid's background a little bit, dig into how he is around the locker room and those types of things. So, you look at this last month and Georgia has some camps in early June. They really want those kids to come work out one last time for some of them, but the spring evaluation is really, really sped up now because of the way June is set up with LVs. You don't work out on OVs. It's the wine and dine time. This is the time you get to go out and see these kids work out, see them in person, kind of figure out, hey, what's going on? And I'm sure that Georgia, I'm sure that LSU, I'm sure Ohio State, they all have these recruiting threads. And every day you kind of update that. Hey, I went to see Jake Rowe today, and I'm hearing such and such school for him at his school. So there's a lot of information they're gathering right now, seeing these kids in person, seeing them practice. I'm going to watch a major UGA target practice tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be several SEC schools there. It's their first day of practice at this particular school. So I'm interested in seeing who's out on the road and what these kids look like and kind of what the buzz is.
You went and saw Jake Rowe today, and we're taking him off the board.
Jake Rowe's off. That's what they take me off the board because I'm what kind of question am I doing? Red on red. You would think I know when I'm downstairs. Don't put on damn red on red. I mean, my God.
I think about it all the time. I got a couple red shirts, and I try to even wear it with this. As Tim Watts makes fun of my background, he calls it a bib behind me. But I didn't want the full background. This stays up in my office full time. But listen, man, I've got MVP camp going today.
MVP. You love that hoodie, though.
You know what that is, MVP camp?
Yeah, I kind of do. Yeah, you know what, man? I'm apologize to DGD. So DGD, our podcast guy, comes on all the time. He got a shirt. I gave him a shirt. I don't know if he's got it yet, but I sent him a shirt in the mail, and I don't get into all the specifics of what's going on. I don't know if he's even got it. I mean, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting on a piece of important information that I'm waiting on. It's been 30 days. I don't know what's going on, but we got some stuff. I got some stuff over here to give away, and I'm afraid to give it out now because it's taking 2 weeks, 3 weeks to ship this stuff. It's ridiculous. So I learned my lesson. Next time,
don't listen. I don't know if you did this or not. Don't use USPS these days. Okay.
I will not again. I will not make that mistake again.
That's rough.
Next time we give away something, I'm doing it FedEx or whatever it is. So
yeah, FedEx, UPS store, one or the other. Go that route for sure. Yeah, man. You talk about the recruiting board. It's kind of funny. I was thinking about it. The spring evaluation period means so much because we back when we used to spend more time on the road, obviously you still spend some, I spend none basically for recruiting, but used to spend time on the road. You go to spring evaluation period, you'd run into a lot of coaches. I mean, a lot of coaches. And I remember talking, I believe it was, and I don't mind saying the name, he's retired now. Dan Brooks, I believe it was, told me one time during the spring evaluation period, man, you want to talk about one of the funnest guys to run into. Used to tell me so many stories about back in the day when he recruited Travis Henry out of Frost Proof High School and all that stuff. I mean, a guy, I tell you what, he'd be a great Bark After Dark guest if we could ever get him, but he's probably off the grid somewhere. But he told me one time, he's like, man, we want to know everything. And he brought up what you just said about how the guys are handling the recruiting process, because not only does that tell you, okay, well, not only are you looking for, okay, has it gone to his head a little bit? Has he been lazy since he started to get his offers? Has he started to rest on his laurels? But also, are they sick of it already? That changes how they recruit him. Like they know if they know a guy is almost done with this thing and he's just tired of it, then you might want to go ahead and put your best foot forward. You might want to go ahead and throw that punch that's, your signature punch on a guy to try and deliver the knockout blow to everybody else, a little sooner than maybe you wanted to, or maybe you try to move his official visit up, or there's so much that goes into this. And it's one of those things that's like, man, if you sit there and you break down a football play and like at the pro level or the college level in a sophisticated offense, and you think about all of the different options, like you've seen Kirby Smart break down a defensive call, or Nick Saban break down a defensive call, and you're like, dang, at the detail, recruiting is no different. I mean, it is
correct.
3,000 pieces of information all coming into one, informing you as to what you've got to do. And the detail that Georgia puts into it is the reason Georgia is where it is.
I tell all these recruits, it's not just Georgia. Same way the NFL. They're looking for a reason not to offer you. They're looking for a reason not to draft you. Give us something to please get you off of this board. Let us find something out about you.
On that board.
Yeah, give me a something that tells me to stay away from you. They're begging you to give them something not to offer. They when there's 10 players on that linebacker board at Georgia, those are 10 good players. How do you start? How you start getting it down to 2 or 3? They need help. They need you to do something. So they're digging. They're digging to try to find things too and try to process information. So it's a big month. It's a lot going on there. And yesterday, if you guys are subscribers on DawgsHQ, you saw who Georgia went to see right off the bat. And I was told they spent most of the day there. It's a major 5-star, 2025 target that everybody on our board knows. So, I'm going to try to follow up and see what I'm hearing on there with him. But that kind of tells you, Jake, we were talking about yesterday, that to me, it kind of said a lot that they only get one visit with him until his OV, and they went yesterday. So kind of tells you, like, are they behind, or is he that much of a priority? They go there and say, hey, we're here first. We're seeing you first. We got multiple staff members. So, that type of thing, you try to start late, from our end, we start trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together for our take. Like, what does that mean? And, so those things, it's all pieces of puzzle, man. Can you put it all together? And Georgia didn't get this kid last year, but exactly what you just mentioned, Sammy Brown. And when I talked to Sammy Brown's dad a couple of weeks after he committed to Clemson last year, he just said, Rusty, man, he had every intention to go into Georgia and Clemson, those 2 OVs. And he got to Clemson. He said, man, I'm done. I'm tired of visits. I'm tired of talking to coaches. This is it for me. I'm done. And these kids have been recruited so long, Jake, 2 or 3 years. Sammy Brown, 4 years. Yeah. I mean, these kids have been recruited so long. Justin Green did the same thing. He came to Georgia that weekend, and he silently committed on Wednesday. Remember, he made his announcement a couple of days later. Auburn was trying to get him on campus right over. He was done. He was tired of the recruiting process. So there's a lot of plans and there's a lot of things in June where you see like kids got 4 visits. A lot of these first visits could seal the deal. So there's that too. How many times can you get in front of this kid before that OV, and can you get him to campus for that OV is some of the next pieces of the puzzle to be answered.
And maybe teasing your story a little bit today, I thought the same thing was true with Travaris Robinson, T-Rob, and kind of where he went on his first day out on the road. Today was his first day on the road. And the guy he's visiting kind of, I feel like, tells you where Georgia's looking at safety, and that's a type of position. So you're right, man. It's one of those things that's kind of like, it's kind of like official visits, right? If you in a lot of ways, you really, if you think about it, conventional wisdom says you want the first or the last. Like you either want the first one to shut him down, maybe get with the opportunity of thinking you can maybe get him to commit and shut him down, or you want the last one. Now you just want one more than anything, but I typically think that most staffs probably look at it like, hey, well, let's get him in first or let's get him in last. And then their visits to them kind of says something like, hey man, listen, I came to see you first. Or you tell him, hey dude, you're the last guy I wanted to see. I'm not saying the guys in between, not everybody can be first and last. You got 25, the 30 guys you're trying to sign.
Well, there's different philosophies, and I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong, but I'll give you 4 schools right here, and 2 of them have different philosophies than the other 2. Clemson and Georgia try to front end their OVs, like they're trying to get as many as they can those first 2 weekends. Georgia specifically tries to get that in-state crop of kids in early. And you look at Ohio and together. You look at Ohio State and USC. It seems to me they try to go last. They try to take. If you look at the visit dates, so if you go on3 profile and you click down and you click that recruiting tab and you look at visits, go look at USC and go look at Ohio State that last weekend or those last 2 weeks of June. They're trying to back end load all their to me, their major targets. I'm not saying one's right or wrong, but there is different philosophies. Clemson specifically really pushes their kids that first weekend. And, and I don't even know if they didn't even have a second weekend of OVs last year. They had one weekend, had about 20 kids. They did it 2 years in a row. 2 years ago, Jake, you remember, man, they got Vic Burley, Stefan Green. They got all those kids to commit that one weekend. And, like, don't take another visit. You can commit right now. And that's kind of what happened last year. They had a bunch of kids there early. They try to get their kids in there early, get those kids committed and say, look, if you commit, you're not taking another visit. And it's worked for some, hadn't worked for others. So not saying it's right or wrong, but there's different philosophies as far as those OVs. But what you just said also, you got to get them when you can get them on campus and see how things go. I feel like looking at Georgia's 4 weekends, or really 5 weekends, because they got the one in May this year. When you look at the 4 weekends in June, I feel like they're pretty equal through them. There's some freaking dudes all 4 weekends. So I'm interested in how that's going to play out and how that's going to turn into. One of our guys said, asking about July and how that's going to play. If your June goes well, you'll have good news in July. It usually takes those kids a couple of weeks to process things, sit back with their family. Last year, Georgia, Jake, they went that O-line run. They went like 5 out of 7 days. They got those kids announced all together. So we'll see. But I do think, June is so important. Different philosophies around the country. Very, very interesting how it plays out.
Yeah, last year was kind of funny, Rusty, because, they had that whole month of June, and it was like they'd have official visit weekend, and then a guy would pop on Monday, and maybe another guy on Tuesday, but at least one guy would kind of go on Monday or Tuesday early that next week. And it kind of kept it going. And then just a barrage came in that first week of July. I'm not ashamed to say it. You remember me and you sitting here on this very platform, just pounding out videos. We were over here just in case, kind of knowing what the deal was, but we were over here changing shirts.
I was on vacation.
Yeah,
I was on vacation.
Getting
ready to go on vacation. We were taping, thinking, I think this kid's gonna pop, so we'll have this one if he does. We're changing shirts.
I was over here. We were walking away from the camera, being like, "Hey, let me change my shirt real quick. Let me change my hat."
Oh, man. Yeah,
just a little tricks of the trade there. I don't mind telling you.
That worked.
I was over here with hangers on the wall, like changing my hat, just trying to figure out a way to get all that content in.
Just for a side note, I will be on vacation a week in July this year, so and maybe I can get to it too.
It doesn't. The rain doesn't fall like it does with you when you're on vacation. Like several pieces of news come, but
Ooh.
I am good for one commitment and I can almost tell you every kid. Justin Green did it last year. I remember Jawan Taylor did it back in the day. I can tell you a few of these guys that did it specifically, but and it's almost like the first day or the second day of vacation. And I make it a point on my vacation. I'm like, I'm gonna leave the phone at the house when we go out to the beach. And
Yeah, I can't do that.
well, but for some reason, I mean, not for some reasons, because I'm addicted to it. About 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm out there a couple, 2 or 3 hours. I'm like, all right, listen, I got to go back home and get my phone.
Well, I do that. I'm in charge of the music, so I have to take my phone. I take a little Ziploc bag. Now, I will not check it every, 10 minutes, but I'll check it every hour or so. But
yeah,
take those Ziploc bag down to the beach, play a little music under the tent there. And but last year, I mean, I was on the deck of our condo where we were staying, and good thing is there were scheduled announcements, so I knew when to check in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's clutch.
So yes, I knew when they were scheduled now, so we're good to go. But it's go time, man. I'm excited. Get to go see spring practice tomorrow. Talked to a lot of coaches yesterday. Hey man, I had a chance to play the David Pollock. Shout out David Pollock. Love these hats I give out every year. It was his. It's his foundation. I think it's Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. Man, he had a ton of people out there. It was so funny. Calvin Johnson, Joe Hamilton, a bunch of Georgia Tech guys out there playing. A bunch of old dogs playing. Sean Jones. Talked to Tavares King, Reggie Brown. All those guys were in town. Huge tournament. Bunch of Georgia players. Tate Ratliff. Tate Ratliff is not a bad golfer, man.
Okay.
Tate Ratliff is not a. I tell you who I got to play with. One of the guys I got to play with, Colin Drake, the walk-on quarterback from Dallas, Texas. I'll tell you this now, he can strike it. You talking about a sweet swing? Colin Drake, he can stroke it now. I mean, saved us a couple times on the scramble yesterday. At some point during the day, not sure how it happened. I don't know if we made a trade for a player to be named later, but Oscar Delp rolled up and he was like, I'm having a trade, man. The team I'm on they're struggling. And so Delp rolled up on us and played. And I'll say this: he needs to keep running routes and catching balls. He's a lot better pro. Delp is a lot better pro prospect than he is a golfer right now. He's learning the game. I had a great talk with him. He went out to California for the Brock Bowers deal. Spent a couple days in Napa. Yeah. So he went to Alcatraz and did some things out there. But he was excited for Brock, and Delp looked good, man. I told him yesterday. I said, man, you it's your time, and he was excited. And it was fun to see those guys relaxed. Nobody's really talking. We're not really talking ball. They're just playing. I kind of never forget a couple years ago in that tournament, Jordan Davis, man, chipped in on a hole at that group behind us. When you see that big man, dude, Jordan Davis chipped in. I'm talking about this place them guys went unhinged, man. It was fun. So, but shout out to David Pollock, his foundation, great time, huge turnout. I think 36 teams, raised a ton of money for multiple organizations, but Children's Healthcare of Atlanta is their main one, and I know that was a good deal. So David does a great job with the whole team. Russ Tanner, all bunch of his guys were out there helping. Russ Tanner, I'm tell you something. Russ Tanner on that barbecue.
Oh,
my man, he made barbecue sandwiches on one hole and had them all pre-wrapped.
Yeah,
he handed me one. I took a bite. I said, Russ, I got to get in the car, man. I've worked too hard to lose weight to sit over here with you all morning. I can't do it. And but Russ Tanner's a freaking dude on that smoker. He had good work there.
We had Russ Tanner on Bark After Dark, and we talked about barbecue for about 20 of the minutes. I mean, and you do it too, but I mean, I send y'all pictures all the time, just about every time I have something on, and I do love barbecue. I love cooking it more than I like eating it, though. Like I really do enjoy doing it. But all right, listen. Something else we enjoy is our partnership with Andy Ludicky over at myperfectfranchise.net. You've heard us say it. Are you a displaced corporate executive? You want your own career? Want to kind of put your own thing together? Do you want to take ownership of something? Or have you already taken ownership of something and you just want to diversify? You want to do something in a different field? Andy Ludicky can help you out with that with myperfectfranchise.net. Andy is an experienced entrepreneur. He's a huge college football fan. I mean, this guy loves it, man. I mean, I can't express that enough. And he's owned a few franchises. He's owned a few businesses, and using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. You can call Andy and put your life and career in your own hands. And best of all, his services are completely free to you. So you really do have nothing to lose. Find your perfect franchise at myperfectfranchise.net. And as I always say, appreciate Andy and his partnership on this show. We actually had a little contest over at DawgsHQ, little trivia about some franchise, and our man Ryan Jordan over there won 3 free months of a DawgsHQ membership. So it's one of those got to come be a member to get involved in that. But listen, come over there and hit you some trivia. You can get some months for free over at DawgsHQ. So let's talk about this current team, Rusty. You spent some time with some guys the other day. Mm-hmm. We've talked about May before. What would you say? Probably 90 to 95% of the team is going to take off and kind of go their own direction this month.
I asked them yesterday because I know their schedule. It's a lot different than what people think. This is basically their only 3 weeks of the year off. They get together. A lot of these kids take finals. Most of these kids have finals either today, tomorrow. They'll be done with finals by Thursday. They get about 3 weeks off, and they reconvene, I believe, the week of Memorial Day, and then it's on. And they get 3 days. They get 4 days at the 4th of July. That's it. So they get 3 weeks now and 4 days at 4th of July. So think about that.
Oh, boy. Listen, we know from news breaking in the past they get some time off at 4th of July. Four-wheeler and boat accidents.
Not as many. Oh, man. When Sonny broke his arm on that, oh, man.
Jake Fromm broke his hand. That didn't happen on 4th of July, but it broke on 4th of July. I mean, it
broke on 4th of July. Yep.
Yeah.
But this kid's got about 3 weeks off, and I asked them yesterday, most of them. Was actually talking to a bunch of them kind of, before we teed off. I was just catching up with some of those guys I've covered, and I said, "What's you guys? Are you finishing up finals? What are you doing?" And man, most of them, training, stay in touch. It's amazing. Their 3 weeks are off, but they still have to check in. They still have to show their weight. They still have to check in. You're not getting 3 weeks off without Kirby Smart. They do that. They do that during their extent. Like if you like you get a week, like it 4th of July. I know they have to send in their videos of what they do every day. If you're in the cardio club, which I probably would have been in the cardio club that's the 6 a.m. guys. It's weight control, trying to run, and those types of things. They definitely have to check in every day. They have to take a picture of their scale. I mean, it's amazing, but that's what it takes. You know what I mean? It takes discipline. There's so many people behind the scenes, and we're just so familiar with Georgia. Are they the only ones doing this? They're not, but we're familiar, and we know how it works there. That nutrition team at Georgia, they're on top of it. They're telling these kids what to eat at home and what not to get and those types of things. So it is 365, man. And these kids they deserve it. 3 weeks off, go be a college student, go visit some places, just go live life a little bit because, as we can't wait for college football to start. None of us can. These young men are going to start in 3 weeks. And Jake, they basically only have, when they get back from 3 weeks, they basically only have 4 days off until football season's over. So think about that. And, just these kids be safe, make good decisions, and have a great time, man. 3 weeks. I told them yesterday, I said, boys, y'all got any trips planned? They all kind of looked around. I said, man, y'all got money now. It's not like when I was in college, let's go split the hotel room 10 ways. Y'all dudes are going to Cabo and other places like that. Y'all go have fun and wherever you go, just be safe and have fun. But man, 3 weeks to go. You know how it is when you're young. You're not thinking anything. Everything will be like, hey man, on Tuesday, hell, y'all want to go here? Let's just go. Let's buy a plane ticket and go.
Yeah.
So next 3 weeks, man, around the country, not just for Georgia. Pray for these kids. Safe decisions, fun times, good luck on their finals, and go.
Yeah, definitely be safe, man. I mean, what was it, last summer before, although, there's so many tragedies, people, getting in the water and having trouble there, man. It was just, that was awful. But you reminded me of something when you said about other schools doing it. This is funny. I had a South Carolina fan DM me. This was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I said something, I appreciate him watching the show. And he said something about, cause I said, this is, the way Georgia does it. And he quoted me, and in the line it said, the way Georgia does. And he goes, listen, a-hole, don't you understand that the other programs? And I was like, yeah, man, I'm not speaking about the other programs. I'm sorry I gave you the impression that I think Georgia does it better and different than most people. maybe a
Yeah.
couple of national championships says they do it real well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, when we say how Georgia does things, it's not because we're saying they're the only team that pays attention to this stuff. But I mean, listen, I think we do all understand that Kirby is really detail oriented, and I've heard stories in the past, Rusty, and I don't know how many players do this. I've always wondered, and I've never really checked, and it's kind of hard to check because there are some people that aren't really paying attention to what the players are doing this time of year because they're recruiting, right? They're in May, they're on the road, they're doing this and that, and some of them are getting a little time off or getting a chance to step away. But there are some guys every year that kind of hang back and spend a little time here and there. Maybe they don't spend the entire 3 weeks away from campus. And they kind of hang, back in Athens and catch up on some stuff, or they take a Maymester if they need a class, and they don't completely disappear. And I've always wondered kind of what those guys do. And I don't know if you have anything about that. It's just a point I wanted to bring up because I took Maymesters whenever I was at Georgia. That was a long time ago, obviously, but I took a couple of Maymester classes, and they were full of football players that, I'm sure were probably programmed to be doing something.
Well, I mean, not getting too deep into stuff like this, but a lot of these kids, this is better than home. You know what I mean? I mean, that's not that's fact.
That's true, man. That's
fact. You know what I mean? You got a big spacious place. You got, somebody cooking you a meal, and saying, hey, this is, it's a college is a good place for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And, it's sometimes there's influences at home that these kids make adult decisions saying, hey, I need to stay here and keep myself focused, stay out of that. And that's the other side that you really don't talk about. Some of these kids, this is the best place for them and then getting structure and those types of things. So I always think about that parent side of it. And for a young man, that's a good opportunity, that you got your own place there, your own, now, and look, again, NIL, man, they're not working with a 19-inch box TV in their rooms anymore. These dudes got flat screens posted up with their nobody's playing Atari 2600 no more. I mean, these guys are playing big boy games and things like that. So a lot of these guys, yeah, they will stay. They might go home for a couple of days, but majority of them, yeah, they'll probably be in Athens as their home base. They'll just go wherever they go. But a lot of that time too, man, you get to go and see different places, go home with kids, that type of thing. I will say this. Let me touch on one more thing. And don't take this and run with it as saying, I'm saying this is the next guy, because I'm not. But I'm going to say this. The conversation came up about Jayen Rashada yesterday, and several players were talking. Several players were there on his OV. They got a chance to meet him and his family. And I'm telling you, man, I'm not saying they were blown away, but he had a really good first impression in Athens. Like, he really just kind of fit in. I think that's the best word. I mean, a lot of these guys, this is the first time they ever met him, and they were like us. They've heard different things. We don't know all the situation that happened during his recruiting process, but I was told, man, he went in, and some of the guys he knows, they were hanging out with him, and some of the guys he didn't know, but he made a really good first impression in Athens, and I think that's a big deal as a quarterback. Coming into a new room, he's coming into a crowded room. He understands that, but that's good news to hear, because there was no microphones around. That was unfiltered. I didn't ask the question. I was just standing there, and it came up. They came up about him, and so that was pretty cool to hear those guys talk about him. So that's a good deal.
Yeah, quick. Always good to make a good first impression. And listen, I mean, that kid chose to. Again, we've talked about it. He chose to come sit here when he had some real good options, would have had some real good options had he taken more visits to go play somewhere. Rusty, I was thinking about the Maymester thing, and I thought about a story that I have not thought about in years and years, and it's definitely Georgia football related. We all remember old Max Gene Gillis.
MJG, baby.
The helmet story, everybody talks about that one. What they have to do, go get one from a hot air balloon company?
They had to get it. I believe, from I believe it came from the Kansas City Chiefs, 9 1/4.
That's right.
I think it was. Yep, 9 1/4.
I was talking to somebody about that one time, and they said, "Yeah, I think they had to have it made at an RV, facility."
I'll tell you this: my man got off the bus for the Georgia LSU game in 2004 in Athens. He got off the bus in the dog walk, full gear, helmet strapped on, chin strap buckled. He got off the bus in full gear. And I knew right there that Georgia was about to beat that ass, and they
Yeah.
did.
He
I
was
mean, the dude got off the bus fully uniformed, chin strap buckled, the first dude off the bus, and they beat the brakes at LSU. That I think 48-13, I think.
Yeah, we so whenever I can't remember what year this was. It might have been between 03 and 04. But I took a Maymester class, had marine biology, and kind of make a long story short, we had a field trip. I believe it was down to Sapelo Island.
Oh yeah.
They took us down there for the weekend. We all had to pay for it and everything. Robert Gathers was in the class. I believe maybe Gerald Anderson was in the class.
Oh boy.
Derek White, or some of the guys I remember. Anyway, a lot of the guys didn't want to jump into the water. We were on boats in the intercoastal area, in the kind of the marshy looking area. And I remember Max Gene Gillis, I wasn't on his boat, so I didn't get to participate in this. But I remember him standing up and he goes, pretty big boats, obviously. And he stands up and he goes, "Oh, man, y'all don't know where I'm from. I'll jump in this water." So he jumped in. And when he did, he didn't realize he jumped in. He jumped in feet first, but he jumped into about 3.5, maybe 3 feet of water. And his legs went into that mud about thigh deep. And you want to talk about how many people it took to pull him out of that mud.
Some panic.
I thought Robert Gathers was going to slip a disc. Like he had him, like everybody on the whole boat was pulling. I thought they were going to have to hook the boat up and just pull him out and drag him for a while. It was one of the funniest things. Like he was laughing, crying. Everybody was, at least he wasn't scared, and he had grown up near the water. But man,
who was that 5-star linebacker from there? Went to Miami. What was his name? Allen. Remember the linebacker? Was it Allen Bailey? Was it Allen Bailey?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, he played at
First time I heard of that place.
He had to ride the ferry to school every day.
Yeah, rode the ferry. Yeah, how about that?
Because we played McIntosh Academy in high school. Boy, you want to talk about a bad place to play football? You fighting yellow flies and sand gnats. Played them 3 years in a row in August, and you're out there and you're playing at dusk. And that's the last place in the world you want to be, is the Georgia coast at dusk. Dude, I come back, just welts all over your arms.
Oh man,
get our ass kicked too. It's unbelievable. All right, let's take some questions here, Rusty. Let's get these. That you got questions. We may have answers. We'll see. Let's go all the way back up here to the top. Brennan, Rusty says, where do you guys think UGA sits with Dijon Lee and Travis Smith?
I'm sending this text back to you, Jake, right now about some information. I think Travis Smith is a guy that I feel good about Georgia right now. I think that he at Westlake High School, 2025 wide receiver. I think the transition over from Brian McClendon to James Coley didn't really slow them down any. I like the kind of momentum there. He's got a great frame, 6'3". I just think Georgia's in a good spot there. You start talking about a 5-star and Dijon Lee out of California. Obviously, some connections there with Dante and coming over from USC staff. That in my opinion, Georgia has a really good chance there, but I'm not as confident as I would be with, say, Travis Smith. That one's going to come down to visits, how those OVs go, how the month of June goes. Georgia is definitely in that. They're definitely in that. But I don't think I can make a prediction right now, but some great connections there with this Georgia staff. Tavares Robinson also was recruiting him before from Alabama. So there's some connections there. Georgia's got some connections, got some ends there, and that's going to be a guy that's going to be a high priority for them.
We touched on this one already. Dylan Brooks says June, July going to be similar to last year's. It's probably going to be hard to match quite what Georgia did last year, but it'll be busy.
Maybe not that many days in a row. I think they went like 8 out of 11 days in a row there in July where they got a guy. I'm not sure they get that many, but I don't think it's going to be a quiet month by any means for Georgia.
Rusty, the 2 months combined were, I want to say it was right around 14 guys.
Probably, yeah.
And then when you kind of got into August, when Nate Frazier and I believe Justin Williams may have gone right there in August. I think when you added August in there, I mean, it was unbelievable what happened. And then they got Chris Cole like right there in September. So it was kind of like from when the Raiola thing didn't work out for him. But when Raiola committed, it started kind of a string. Now he wasn't the Pied Piper effect with a bunch of wide receivers or anything like that, but kind of started a string that, if you take it on into September, Georgia ended up landing 5-star after 5-star after big time 4-star. I mean, it was unbelievable. It really was one of the more amazing things that I've seen. Tony Griffin asked us a question I'm not sure we can answer, Rusty, because he uses the word surprise in here. What surprise recruit do you think Coach Coley might get out of South Florida? I don't know that I can tell you a surprise recruit, because that would mean it wouldn't be surprising to me.
I'll say this: I will be surprised if Georgia don't sign a wide receiver out of South Florida.
Yeah,
I don't know a name. You know, Coach Coley is extremely connected there. He's, you know, if you read our site, if you're a subscriber to DawgsHQ, you know where he was yesterday. You know, one of his stops today, he's in South Florida. So unless the only thing is it's so deep in state right now, wide receivers is a pretty good class. But I do think that Georgia with James Coley, I would lean more toward, yes, they're going to go in South Florida. And if James Coley is very well liked there, he's done very good in South Florida. So I don't know a surprise name. I kind of would be more surprised if they don't end up with at least one South Florida prospect, because James Coley's he's going to be down there a lot the next couple of weeks.
Sounds like James Coley. That's exactly that sounds like just what he does.
Change the game, baby. Change the game.
I got to shout out my man Michael Jones right here. Some kind words. Says there's no other football chat out there better than this. We appreciate that.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Do my best not to talk about football if I can, because I don't want to look ignorant. Audio cutting out there. Any news on Derek Meadows from our man Paper Chase?
Bishop Gorman, wide receiver. Georgia's they've got some West Coast connections, so it'd be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm gonna check his own 3 profile to make sure I've got this right on his. Yes, he is coming to Georgia for official on June the 7th. He will be at Michigan the week before, Notre Dame, and then Alabama. You know, Georgia has been out there a couple of times to see him. I think this will be one of those, and he's also 6'5", 6'5" prospect there. So, how many of those bigger body type guys are they trying to take in this class? I don't know, but that's what he brings to it, and with some West Coast connections on staff as well. They've done well on the West Coast. D Hill, my guy, Coach Hill, there's very connected on the West Coast. So Bishop Gorman and some of those guys, he knows those staffs well. So we're always going to have a presence on the West Coast, and I'm always going to recruit the West Coast for those guys.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I've always liked guys like Derek Meadows, the tall but skinny wide receiver in high school, because it's fun to watch him fill out in college. It's fun to watch him come in as kind of a skinny, narrow-shouldered, guy, and then all of a sudden they leave college and they are a man.
Grown man.
215, 220, just a big human. Dylan Brooks says over under 13.5 draftees for Georgia next year. I'm counting 15. To me, Rusty, that depends so much on who decides to leave early and who decides to come back. I mean, if Georgia, on one hand, obviously you'd love to see Georgia break the draft record. But if Georgia had, let's say, 75% of the draft eligible guys that'll be juniors in 2025, if 75% of them decide to come out, let's say Georgia wins the national championship and those guys say, all right, man, we accomplished it and I'm done. Obviously, it's great Georgia won a national championship. It's great that Georgia's going to have, would have a bunch of draftees, but, obviously you'd have a lot to replace the following year. But if like Jalen Walker and Ernest Green, Christian Miller, I'm trying to think.
Jared Wilson,
Dylan Fairchild, Micah Morris, if all of them come out, listen, I think Georgia could absolutely break his record. They're not all going to come out. Is the thing. No. And, some guys are probably going to fall by the wayside. You're probably, as bad as I hate to say it, some guys are probably going to get hurt and miss a chunk of the season and maybe not come out, or maybe their draft stock falls or something like that. There's so much that's going to happen between now and then. But I tell you what, I put out a list of my 12 best draft prospects yesterday. And if every one of those guys stay healthy, every single one of those guys are going to get drafted. And you talk about, then you got guys on offense, Dylan Bell, Oscar Delp, will he come out? All that stuff. So, I mean, listen, if you want to just empty the clip and lose all the juniors, Georgia could get a hell of a lot of draft pub next year, get 20, 21 guys drafted. And it'd be unreal. It would be the talk of everything. It'd be a hell of a recruiting tool. But I definitely think Georgia's they're definitely going to get into double digits. If you put it at 12.5, I would take the over. I don't know that I would take the over on 13.5. At least I wouldn't do it with any sort of money. Maybe if you gave me some odds on it, give me like a plus 300 on over 13.5.
I don't think Kirby Smart wants to break that record because that means a lot of guys left.
Yeah,
I think they got a real good. I think they got a real good record. And let's just let that stay for a while because there's going to be 4 or 5 guys that I'm sure that's going to be. They're going to hopefully come back. So Ohio State, man, what they did last year, I think I read. Now I may be wrong, but I think I read where Ohio State had 4 kids that had at least from somebody a first round grade come back. So that Georgia.
One of the things that helps with all that, Rusty, too, is the fact that the way the collectives are set up and the way
no doubt
is set up is like you basically got expiring contracts. You get
no doubt.
You get a guy like Carson Beck and Michael Williams and Malachi Starks off the books, then hey, buddy, look how much money you could make by coming back. I mean, it's I know it may not be crazy to think of that, but so I don't know if you've heard this name, Rusty, Hardy Watts.
I have not.
Tim Watts' uncle.
I don't know. It's a kid out of looks like out of UMass area, Dexter School, 6'5", 295, interior guy, 4-star rated, top 300 player for on 3. I have not.
I dig that name though.
Hardy Watts. Yeah, I like the name. Don't know him, Paper Chase, and
I tell you who does know him. Charles Power knows him because he is 120 overall for us.
Here's what I would say, and they've made so many mentions on this. This is an unusual class under Kirby Smart in the state of Georgia because of the O-line, the D-line, the wide receivers, and some linebackers in the state of Georgia. I think it's down a little bit at DB, and I think you see Georgia all over the country at DB.
Yeah.
But I do think Georgia can do a lot. Let's say the meat of their class in state, I think, with O-line, D-line, wide receivers, and linebackers. And it has not been that way. When I mean linebackers, I'm talking about inside backers. There's a guy that I think that's moved up Georgia's board. Son, I'll make a mention of that on DawgsHQ today. I did talk to his high school coach yesterday, and he said he talked to UGA staffer. They really dug in on this kid. I had him in MVP camp a couple of weeks ago. I liked him. Didn't know a ton about him until I saw him in person. And he definitely, if Georgia offers, this is going to get real interesting. But they did call yesterday, getting verified measurables, getting some more film, and just my experience. This is, you don't take your daughter's phone call when she works for the competition.
That's right.
There's some names out there, and there's still a lot. But in state, man, I think Georgia can do a lot. And last year, go get those offensive linemen all over the country. You're talking about Buffalo. You're talking about Texas, Iowa, all these places they go to get these, Illinois, they go to get these offensive linemen. They can do the most of their damage in state this year. That D-line, we've talked about a ton about that D-line group in state. So I think, Paper, when you start asking about out-of-state kids, I think Georgia's going to recruit inside out truly and see what they can do with this class from the state of Georgia.
But those positions you just listed, when you start, if you're thinking about out-of-state recruits, if they are out-of-state prospects in this class, if they play those positions, they're probably a little further down the board.
Correct.
Out of state and they play those offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, those types of positions, wide receiver, then they're probably a little further, down the board just because of how stacked state is and how, like you said, Georgia wants to recruit inside out there. All right, folks, we're out of time for today. We will be back with you on Thursday morning, and we can't wait. But y'all have a great rest of Tuesday and Wednesday, and we'll hopefully have some news to report on Thursday. Y'all take it easy.